Please state your name and spell it for the record.
My name is Bryan Leppard, B-R-I-A-N-L-E-P-P-A-R-D.
And Mr. Leppard, how are you currently employed?
I'm employed by the Georgia Bureau of Investigation Crime Lab in Savannah. Actually, in Pooler. I'm sorry, we moved a couple years ago.
Okay. So what does the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Crime Lab do?
So we're a forensic science agency. We analyze evidence that are submitted to us by outside agencies. Those might be police departments, the GBI investigative, the GBI investigative division, sheriff's departments, district attorneys, other medical examiners, other people that are in the law enforcement and legal community in the state.
And how long have you been with the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's Crime Lab?
About 16, a little over 16 and a half years.
All right. And what is your job title?
I'm a firearms and tool mark examiner.
Tell the jury about your job duties and responsibilities as a firearms and tool mark examiner.
Yeah, routinely I am called upon to determine whether or not a bullet or a cartridge case was fired from a specific weapon. If no weapon is submitted, to determine what type of weapon a particular bullet or cartridge case may be consistent with being fired from. Also perform function testing on weapons. I perform serial number restorations. I perform muzzle to target distance determination on weapons. I perform general tool mark analysis, as well as other various job duties related to firearms.
All right, so tell the jury a little bit about your training and education in the field of firearms and tool mark analysis.
Yeah, so I have a bachelor's of science degree in chemistry from Georgia Southern University. Since being employed by the GBI in 2005, I underwent an extensive training program of approximately a year and a half. That was basically a year of both academic work and training, as well as other various practical exercises. The last 6 months of that year and a half was actually working cases under another qualified examiner called supervised casework, where we work cases and those are then looked at by a second qualified examiner. I've attended numerous firearms and ammunition manufacturing plant tours where I've seen different ammunition components as well as firearms produced, manufactured in their respective manufacturers, by their respective manufacturers. I have completed numerous armors courses on weapons function testing by different manufacturers. I've currently worked somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 to 2,000 actual firearms cases. I've examined somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 weapons, performed thousands of microscopic comparisons, as well as other different things in the firearms field.
All right, so at this time, the state will tender Mr. Leppard as an expert in firearms and ballistic analysis, as well as tool mark analysis.
No objection, Your Honor.
No objection.
No objection.
He's admitted.
All right, so let's go ahead and start. Go ahead and explain to the jury what the difference is between a semi-automatic handgun and a revolver.
So you can kind of classify those two things both as handguns. A semi-automatic handgun normally has a magazine of some sort. Many times that is a box magazine that's loaded into the bottom of the weapon. A revolver has a magazine that is in the center of the weapon. That's normally is the cylinder of the weapon. The main functional difference or end result difference is that when you fire a revolver, the cartridges and the resulting cartridge cases, those are the fired spent components that hold the gunpowder, they stay in the weapon. In a semi-automatic handgun, those stay there. Sorry, for the revolver, those stay there until they're manually removed from the revolver by the shooter or by someone else. In terms of a semi-automatic pistol, that weapon is loaded by a box magazine and it is fired. Every time it is fired, a cartridge casing, that's the fired ammunition component that holds the gunpowder we talked about, that's automatically, semi-automatic is where the name comes in, extracted, ejected from the weapon, and the next one is fired in. The next one is loaded in. That happens in a split second. So as long as you pull that trigger of that weapon, it will fire unless it runs out of ammunition or malfunctions in some way.
All right, so coming out of the end of the barrel of a gun, like a revolver, what comes out of the end besides kind of the projectile that might hit somebody or hit a wall?
And so you've got the projectile, obviously, and then you've also got both partially burnt and unburnt particles of gunpowder, also a bit of lead that comes out with that.
All right, so what's soot?
Soot's sort of a layman's term for the combination of all of those things.
And stippling?
Stippling is the mark that's made on a particular object if that object is close enough to the end of the muzzle of the gun to be hit by that, by the gunpowder.
So if something's really far away from the gunpowder doesn't hit it, you're not going to see stippling?
Correct.
All right, but if it's close enough, you might see stippling on what kind of surface on a person?
On their skin.
Would you see it on their clothing if they had clothing over the skin?
Not likely. You could see the embedded particles of gunpowder because the gunpowder, if it's relatively close to the muzzle of the gun, it will stick in the fabric itself.
Does the fabric make a difference, like what the person's wearing when they're shot?
Yes.
All right, so a leather jacket's different than a t-shirt?
Correct.
Okay. So I'm going to draw your attention to the Department of Forensic Sciences case number 2020-600-1183. Did you perform an analysis in this particular case?
Yes.
All right. So who submitted the evidence to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's crime lab?
There was different evidence submitted by both the GBI Coastal Regional Medical Examiner in Pooler, as well as the GBI Region 14 office out of Kingsland.
All right, so you got a whole bunch of different evidence from a bunch of different places.
Correct.
All right. So I'm actually going to kind of start backwards for a second here. All right, so I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 339, which has been made safe by our Sheriff's Department here, okay? So so it's been opened. I want you to take a look at State's Exhibit 339 and see if you're able to recognize this exhibit.
Yes.
How are you able to recognize that particular item within State's Exhibit 339?
By its unique case number, which is 2020-600-1183. I believe we spoke of that already. It's submission number 19, and the item contained within is a .357 Magnum revolver, and it is serial number AA Alpha Alpha K 7222.
And was this submitted to you for analysis in regards to this particular case, the homicide of Ahmaud Arbery?
Yes.
All right. At this time, the state would tender into evidence States 339.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Admitted.
So what else is in that particular item number, your item number 19, States Exhibit 339?
There's also a holster.
Did you do any sort of analysis on States Exhibit 339?
I did not.
Okay. Were you able to determine whether that particular Smith & Wesson .357 Magnum was in working order?
May I refer to my notes?
Yes, of course, if it would help with you refresh your recollection.
Yes. Yes, I was able to determine that State's Exhibit 339 was operational as I received it.
All right. So capable of firing.
Yes.
All right. And when it came to you, did it have ammunition in it?
Yes, it did. It had 6 .357 Magnum cartridges in it.
All right. I'll go ahead and take that back from you. Thank you. So when evidence comes in to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation's crime lab, tell the jury how it actually kind of comes into you and how you keep track of it.
Yeah, so when evidence is submitted to us, the submitting agency fills out an online submission form where they indicate the stuff like the case number, the victim or suspect name, the evidence that they're submitting, what it actually is. They put all that stuff in, and then when they come in, they bring the submission form in with them. Those items are then placed into a secure lockbox by the submitting agency. That lockbox is only accessible by from the inside part of the lab, so it's a sort of a double-sided box. One side they put it in, and they put the key inside, and it's locked at that point. No one can access it from the outside. The inside staff is the only one that has access to that, and it's locked. And once they put that evidence in there with the submission form, the evidence receiving staff in the lab takes that evidence out. They verify the information on the submission form, that it matches what's on the evidence packaging, and then they take and they finish entering the rest of the case into the LIMS system. LIMS is the Laboratory Information Management System. That's the system by which our lab keeps track of all of the evidence. It's all barcoded. At that point, it's all photographed. It's given a unique case number and item number so that we can track it throughout the lab system until it's returned to the submitting agency or the court or whoever.
All right, so in this case, the Department of Forensic Sciences case number 2020-600-1183, what did you actually receive from the medical examiner within your office?
Yes, referring to my notes again, there was a number of different items, pellets, wadding, that were submitted from the GBI Coastal Medical Examiner's Office to us for analysis.
All right, so I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 342 and 343. See if you're able to recognize this.
Yes, 340. Sorry, 342. I recognize it's the same case number I mentioned before. It's the submission number 3. States 343. It's the same case number. It's submission number 4.
All right. This time the state would tender into evidence States Exhibit 342 and 343.
No objection.
No objection.
No objection.
Admitted.
So, States Exhibit 342, what are we looking at?
342 is some pellets, arson pellets.
All right. What kind of pellets?
They are lead pellets.
Okay. You able to tell what kind of gun they came from?
Presumably they come from a shotgun most times. The lead pellets of this size would come from a shotgun. There's a few odd exceptions to that, but normally pellets like this come from a shotgun.
All right, and what is States 343?
States 343 is a combination of both pellets and wadding, similar types of materials as the other, just more in different types.
Gotcha. All right. So when it comes to these kinds of pellets, we see on TV with CSI, you match up this gun to this piece of ammunition or this bullet and that kind of thing. Can you do anything with those pellets?
Not in terms of matching them, no.
Tell the jury why not.
Because normally when we look at couple different things there. We're looking at a projectile when we match, as you said, something to a particular gun to identify that it was fired from that gun. These don't make marks that are sufficient or in really any way comparable because they're just random balls going down the barrel of a gun. There is a shot cup, but those aren't normally compared to a shotgun unless there's some very extenuating circumstance where the plastic could maybe leave a random mark. Shotgun could maybe leave a random mark on the plastic of the waddings, but normally those things are not compared.
Gotcha. All right. So I'll go ahead and take that back from you. Thank you, sir. So, what then did you get from the Kingsland, Region 14 of, let me make sure I get this right. What'd you get from GBI Region 14, Kingsland, via lockbox?
There were a number of different things. I was submitted the revolver we just looked at a few minutes ago. There was a 12 gauge shotgun. There were different waddings, 12 gauge cartridge cases, 12 gauge cartridges, excuse me. Those are the unfired rounds that were submitted to the crime lab by GBI Region 14.
All right, what's the difference between a cartridge case and a cartridge?
So a cartridge, specifically as it refers to a shotgun, is also sometimes called a shot shell. A cartridge is the unfired ammunition component. In terms of a shotgun, a cartridge contains the pellets or other projectile, if that's the case, waddings, and gunpowder. The gunpowder propels the wadding and the pellets downrange out the end of the barrel of the gun. At the point that it's fired, that thing is empty, and it is that point a cartridge case or a fired shot shell.
All right, so I'm going to direct you to what has already been tendered and admitted into evidence as states 332. It's been made safe by our sheriff's department here.
Okay.
Would it help you to come down here and look at it rather than up there?
Yes.
All right. If you may step down, Your Honor. All right, Mr. Lever, take a look at states 332 and see what we've got.
Just for the courtesy of the court, the weapon is unloaded. All right, so within steps 332, the main item in there is a 12 gauge Remington shotgun. It is serial number C659540M.
And is this the shotgun that you received in reference to this particular case, the homicide of Ahmaud Arbery?
Yes, it is.
All right, what else is in there?
There are also some test fires that were made by myself, as well as 12 gauge cartridges that were submitted with the weapon.
All right, so I'm going to have you turn so we're looking at the jury
Yes,
right here.
sorry.
So that's okay. So get the shotgun, and then you said there are test fires?
Yes, the test fires are in this package. I can open that if you like.
Sure.
These are 2 test fires I made.
Now, these particular cartridge cases,
Yes.
were they submitted as cartridges to you with that particular shotgun?
Yes, so in this package here, I can open this as well, and I can answer your question.
Good question.
In this package, there were 4. This is item 11C, the bigger item. My submission was item 11. This is item 11C. There were 4 12 gauge cartridges in here, and I used 2 of those to make these 2 test fires, and these are the 2 remaining.
All right, and why were you making test fires?
Those test fires were made as part of a muzzle-to-target distance determination that I was asked to perform.
All right. So when this shotgun first came to you, it had 4 cartridges that could be fired in that shotgun.
In this package, yes.
Okay. Did you get any empty or fired cartridge cases?
Yes.
All right, so I'm going to direct your attention over here. I'm going to show you what has been marked as State's Exhibit 334. I'm actually going to have him continue to stand, if that's okay.
He's got his back to the
Right.
jury, that's
And
right.
I'm sorry, so 334.
Yes.
I'm going to have you take a look at 335 and 336. I was just looking for scissors.
Okay.
Not sure if I have any.
States 334 is same case number we mentioned before. It is submission number 14. And it is a single 12-gauge cartridge case fired shot shell.
Mm-hmm. 335.
.335 is same case number, submission number 15. It is a plastic wadding.
Thank you, sir. And 336.
336 is same case number. It is submission number 16. And it is a single 12-gauge fired shot shell.
So with regard to, I'm going to step in front of you real quick, with
Yes.
regard to states 334 and 336, did you do a comparison on these fired shot shells with that shotgun?
Yes, I did.
And what were you able to determine?
May I refer to my report?
Yes, of course, please take a stand.
I was able to determine that those 2 items were fired in the firearm. I don't remember state's exhibit, but it's the 12-gauge Remington shotgun we spoke of.
So the 12-gauge Remington shotgun, State's Exhibit 332, fired those 2 shell casings.
Correct.
Now, I believe you testified that you were asked to do a muzzle to target distance analysis.
Correct.
All right. And did you in fact do that?
I did.
All right. So what was submitted to you so that you could do this analysis?
There was some clothing from the victim.
Clothing from where? I just didn't hear.
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Where did you have the clothing came from who?
I'm sorry. The clothing was submitted by from the Coastal Regional Medical Examiner's Office.
Right. And did you also have the opportunity to review State's Exhibit 190, the video of the homicide in this case?
Yes, I did.
Did you also have the opportunity to review State's Exhibit 314, the frame-by-frame images from State's 190, the video?
I reviewed those, yes.
And did you also have the opportunity to review some crime scene photos of Mr. Arbery's body?
Yes.
And once you did that, what did you do to perform your muzzle to target distance analysis?
So I looked at the clothing that was submitted. Specifically, there was a white T-shirt that I examined. Made notes, took measurements, photographs of that shirt, and looked at specifically the entry holes in the shirt. I tested some particles chemically to determine the presence of fired ammunition or fired gunpowder chemicals, if you will. I looked at those. I also looked at, we spoke about the photos, looking at where that stuff was assimilated to the defects, the gunshot holes of entry and exit on the body. And I made my analysis based off of that.
And what was your conclusion?
My conclusion, sorry, I keep forgetting about the mic. My conclusion was that the areas on the shirt, the defects on the front of the shirt, I don't know the state's exhibit number, but that you mentioned, but it was Mr. Arbery's shirt, was microscopically examined and chemically processed for the presence of gunshot residues. The examination revealed the presence of gunshot residues and a physical characteristics consistent with contact or near contact gunshot holes of entry.
Okay, so we've got contact or near contact gunshot holes of entry, is that right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to show you what has been marked. I'm going to show you what's been marked as State's Exhibit 401 through 409. Take a look at 401 through 409 and see if you're able to recognize those particular photos.
Yes.
How are you able to recognize 401 through 409?
All of them except for 406 were photos that were taken by myself during my analysis.
Sorry.
406 appears to be, there's no identifying, other than the date and time stamp, and I don't have a recollection of when this occurred exactly, but that does appear to be the body of Mr. Arbery.
All right. And was that sent to you by myself so that you could review it?
It was, yes.
Okay. So at this time, the state would tender into evidence states 401 through 409.
Is 406 duplicative?
406 is duplicative of the crime scene photos. It's just the one he looked at.
Okay. No objection.
No objection.
No objection. Admitted.
All right. So let's go ahead and take a look at 401 through 409. You'll be able to see them on your screen right here. So when looking at State's Exhibit 401, what's the jury looking at here?
State's Exhibit 401 is area, what I marked as Area 1. That was at the left shoulder area of the white shirt.
Okay, so
And by shoulder armpit area.
shoulder, armpit area. So that's right here.
Yes.
Okay. And what was your determination about this particular, was contact, near contact, or something else?
That it was contact or near contact.
And what do you mean by contact or near contact?
That the end of the shotgun was very close to that fabric when it was fired. That's evidenced by looking at the large hole there. That hole, just by looking at the ruler, I could look at my notes for a more specific measurement, but it's 4 or 5 inches across. Normally when pellets and wadding exit a shotgun, for the first few inches, foot or two, they will be in a single shot string. That shot string's give or take an inch or so in diameter. So to have something that large, it had to be made by in my opinion, made by the gas from the tearing of the large amount of gas that exits the end of the barrel of the weapon. Also observed is the rolling of the fabric where the edges of it are seared and rolled up. That's also something that's indicative of a contact or near contact shot.
Something like that? Or is that part of the fabric?
It's kind of difficult to see. I mean, in the sort of middle top there, you can see where it's rolled up. The edges there, yeah, appear to be rolled up. It's a little fuzzy on my end, but.
Are you able to say, based on just the fabric that you looked at in the photo of 406, whether this shotgun was pressed up underneath his arm, or here, or here? I mean, is it easy to say or hard to say?
Just by looking at the photo, I mean, I would say, like I said, it's contact or near contact. There's a little variation there, but it has to be pretty close for that to happen.
Okay. So then when we look at states 403, what are we looking at there?
The state's 403 is again, those notations are by myself. Those were marked. That's the back left. So the shirt there, as you see it in the photo, the back is folded over so that you see the back left shoulder of the shirt. Those appear to be exit. They're consistent with exit marks by pellets that had gone through the body and are starting to exit on that side.
So when we look then at State's Exhibit 402, what's the jury looking at there?
So 402 is what I call defect areas 2 and 3. That is positioned where the neckband of the shirt would be in the top of that photo. So in the uppermost chest, you would have that defect area there, which is, yes, in that area that you were pointing at. Those two holes, those were consistent with the top, and we'll get to it. I was presumably another photo in a minute, but those are consistent with being directly over and associated with the chest wound of Mr. Arbery.
All right, so Mr. Arbery had one chest wound. How do we
Yes.
have 3 holes?
I don't really know. To be able to say that, that bottom hole could very well be associated with the chest wound that is directly above it. It would just be a bunched up fabric where you're making contact with, the gun is passing through, the pellets are passing through those 3 areas at the same time. That's plausible. The other would be that bottom area is a fired and missed shot that did not make impact with the chest area.
But we don't know.
I don't know, no.
And so when we look at 404 and then 405, what are we kind of looking at here with these two sort of
So
images here?
these are that one.
404.
Yes, 404 is diphenylamine. That's a chemical I use to look for. It's either nitrates or nitrites. I apologize. Those are from the the unfired gunpowder particles. So they have a particular shape that we look for. They're either ball shaped, flattened ball shaped, disc shaped. There's some other shapes there, but we look for those, and then sort of the chemical confirmation is that it turns blue. So this this is a positive. This just shows that the diphenyllamine test solution that we're using is working. We take a piece of gunpowder that we know is gunpowder, and we test it with that.
And so what do we have in 405?
Those are some particles that although they didn't look like gunpowder, they appear to be consistent with Grex, which is or shot buffer, which is a portion of the loading of many shot shells that make the pellets sort of have something in between them. It's sort of sidetracked here, but it's to prevent what we call billiard ball effect, so that when the pellets are fired, they don't bounce against each other and cause themselves to spread out faster. I suspect that's what that is. It didn't test positive for gunshot residues, but it was something that I wanted to make sure was not gunpowder. Even though it didn't look that way, I tested it.
Where'd this come from?
Those were collected from the shirt.
All right, so both this 405 and 404 collected from the shirt.
No, 40, that picture there, is that 404?
404.
404 is a control, so that's two things that I brought out. One is the solution to test for the gunshot residues. The other is a known particle of gunpowder. 405 were suspect particles that I tested.
Okay, but they didn't actually react.
They didn't react, correct.
Gotcha. So 406.